My wife cheated on me with my brother, and after a bitter fight over our $400, $0 inheritance from our parents, she secretly transferred it all into her sister's account. What's worse, I just found out she forged my signature to sell our family home, and now she's claiming it was their money. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how my wife turned out to be the biggest liar and cheat I've ever known. The whole thing unfolded so fast, it felt like I was living in some twisted soap opera. One minute everything seemed normal, her smiling, pretending to be the perfect wife, and the next I was digging up secrets that could destroy everything I thought was real. And what's worse, the betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was financial, manipulative, and deeply personal. It all started a few months ago, after my parents passed away. They left us a hefty inheritance, around $400, $0, that we were supposed to split. We had plans, big ones. Buy a new house, start a business, maybe even take that trip to Europe we always talked about. But she always seemed a little too eager to get her hands on the money. She kept pushing me to settle our affairs quickly, rushing me to sign papers, asking about the inheritance more than I was comfortable with. I brushed it off, thinking she was just excited about the future. I mean, I was too. We'd been married for 5 years, and honestly, I thought we had something solid. But then, things started changing. She became more secretive, sneaking around her phone, deleting messages. She'd leave the room suddenly when I entered, or change the subject when I asked about her day. Small things, but enough to set off my gut feeling that something wasn't right. I caught her lying once. She told me she was meeting her sister, Lisa, for coffee, but I found out she was actually with her brother, Mark, at a hotel, doing God knows what. I confronted her that night, and she just shrugged it off, calling me paranoid, saying I was imagining things. That should have been the first red flag, but I stupidly ignored it. Then came the final straw. I was going through our bank statements, just trying to get a handle on everything after the funeral chaos, and I noticed something weird. Large transfers to an account I didn't recognize, her sister Lisa's account. At first I thought maybe Lisa was helping us with some legal stuff or investments, but the amounts were too big and the transactions looked suspicious. I decided to dig deeper. That's when I found out had secretly transferred the entire inheritance 400 into Lisa's account. She did it without telling me, and she had absolutely no legal right to do so. I was furious. I confronted her the next day, and her face twisted into this nasty smirk. She told me she needed the money for emergencies, that she was just helping Lisa out, and that I had no right to question her. When I pressed her about the transfers, she claimed it was all a misunderstanding, that she'd never do something so stupid, and that I was overreacting. But I wasn't stupid. I knew she was lying. I could see it in her eyes, the way she avoided my gaze, the way her voice cracked when she lied. It was obvious she'd been scheming behind my back for weeks, maybe longer. But that wasn't all. That night, I found out she was also cheating on me with my brother David. I had suspected something for a while because David had been acting weird around me, like he was nervous, avoiding eye contact, and there were those late-night calls he'd never admit to. I finally caught him texting her when I was in the room, and she had the nerve to lie again, saying it was just friendly chatting. Yeah, right. I saw the messages, the photos. They weren't just friends talking. They were having sex, probably for months. The woman I loved, the woman I thought was my partner, was screwing my brother and robbing me blind. That's when my world shattered. I felt betrayal so deep it was physically painful. I couldn't believe I was married to a woman who'd lie so blatantly, cheat so blatantly, and steal from us both. I was furious. At her, at my brother, at myself for not seeing it sooner. I spent that whole night awake, staring at the ceiling, trying to process what I'd just learned. It was like everything I believed about my life was a lie. I thought I knew her, but I didn't even know her at all. I started planning what I was going to do next because I knew I couldn't let her get away with this. I had to fight back, revenge if I had to make her pay for what she did. After I found out about Saf's affair with David and her sneaky transfer of the inheritance, I felt like I was walking around in a fog. My mind was racing, trying to piece everything together, trying to figure out what I'd missed, what I could do now. The betrayal cut so deep I couldn't even breathe right. I was angry, hurt, humiliated, all at once. But beneath all that, there was this cold, calculating part of me that knew I had to get revenge, to make her regret what she'd done. The first thing I did was dig into her phone and emails. I needed proof, something solid I could use. I found dozens of messages between her and David, some explicit, some just flirtatious. It was obvious they'd been planning this for a while. I also discovered she'd forged my signature on documents to sell the family house. The house was paid off, worth a good chunk of change, and she'd already transferred the title into her name. I couldn't believe the audacity. I felt like I was losing my mind. How could she do all this? I had trusted her, I had loved her, and now I saw her for what she really was, a liar, a thief, a cheat. I decided I couldn't let her get away with it. I needed a plan, a way to turn the tables. I wanted her to see that I wasn't some naive fool she could manipulate anymore. I started gathering all the evidence I had, screenshots of the messages, bank statements, the fake signatures, and I made copies. I wanted to be ready for whatever came next. Meanwhile, kept up her act of innocence, acting like the victim. She told everyone I was overreacting, that I was jealous or paranoid, that she was just helping her sister out of goodwill. She played the victim so well, it almost fooled some people. But I knew better. I saw her true face now. I knew she was planning to spin everything to make me look like the bad guy. She even accused me of abusive behavior, which was laughable, because all I felt was cold rage. I was furious at her, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I knew I had to do something, and I had to do it fast. One night I decided to confront her directly. I told her I knew everything: the affair, the stolen money, the forged signatures. She tried to deny it all, crying, pleading, twisting her story into knots. She said I was crazy, that I was imagining things, that she loved me and only wanted to help her sister. But I didn't buy it. I threw the evidence on the table, screenshots, bank statements, the fake signatures, and watched her crumble. Her face turned white and she started yelling, calling me a jealous lunatic, saying I was ruining everything. She insisted she was innocent, that I was just paranoid because I didn't trust her. That's when I saw her true colors. The bitchy, manipulative side. She threw accusations back at me, saying I was a bad husband, that I wasn't paying enough attention, that I was controlling. But I knew the truth. She'd been lying, cheating, stealing from the moment she met David, and I was just the last to find out. I felt a strange mixture of relief and disgust. Relief because I finally had proof, and disgust because I'd been so blind for so long. I'd loved her, given her everything, and she'd spit in my face. That night I made a decision. I wasn't going to let her get away with this. I told her I was filing for divorce, taking back what was mine and making sure she paid for her lies. I wanted her to feel the same pain I was feeling: betrayal, loss, and regret. I knew she'd try to spin this, to manipulate the situation, but I was ready. I had the evidence and I was going to use it. I wanted her to realize that you can't cheat and lie forever without consequences. That's the moment I started planning my revenge in earnest. I wasn't just going to walk away. I was going to make her pay for everything she did to me. After I made up my mind to go through with the divorce and take everything back, I realized I needed more than just the evidence I already had. Was clever. She'd spin her stories, deny everything, and try to manipulate the situation to her advantage. I knew I had to be strategic, precise, and ruthless if I wanted her to feel the full weight of her betrayal. That's when I started to lay my plan for revenge. First, I hired a private investigator. I needed to confirm everything: her affair details, her interactions with David, and any other secrets she was hiding. The investigator uncovered more than I expected, and David had been meeting at various hotels, exchanging explicit messages, and even planning to run away together. I also learned that she'd been secretly withdrawing money from our joint accounts, siphoning off thousands over the past few months. It was all adding up. The betrayal was far worse than I thought. Meanwhile, I kept my cool around her. I pretended everything was normal, even though inside I was boiling with rage. I didn't want her to suspect I was onto her. I played the part of the betrayed husband, but I was secretly gathering everything I needed to expose her once and for all. I knew I had to hit her where it hurt, her reputation, her freedom, her sense of security. One day I found an opportunity, was out shopping, and I decided to check her phone. I'd already seen some of her messages, but I wanted more proof, something undeniable. I hacked into her email, found more exchanges with David, explicit plans for their future, and even some blackmail material she'd been saving. She was planning to leave me, take the money, and start a new life with my brother. That was the final blow. I knew I couldn't let her walk away with everything. I also discovered she'd been forging my signature to sell the family house. That was the last straw. She'd already transferred the title into her name, and I realized I had to act quickly before she could do anything else. I contacted a lawyer and started the process of revering the sale, but I knew I needed to do something more immediate to make her understand I wasn't going down without a fight. That's when I devised my revenge plan. I decided to confront her publicly, but on my terms. I wanted to humiliate her, make her realize that I knew every lie, every betrayal, and that I had the evidence to destroy her if I wanted to. I set up a meeting with her sister Lisa, the one she'd transferred the inheritance to. I told Lisa I had all the proof of crimes, money laundering, forgery, infidelity, and I was prepared to go to the authorities if she didn't cooperate. Lisa, surprisingly, was terrified. She knew I'd been manipulative and reckless, and she didn't want to get involved in a legal mess. She agreed to help, but only if I promised to keep her out of trouble. I told her I'd handle everything, but I made it clear I wasn't playing games anymore. I was done being a victim. The next step was to confront directly with everything. I planned a showdown at our house. I wanted her to see that I wasn't just some naive husband who got played. I was a man with power, proof, and resolve. I knew she'd try to deny everything, but I was ready. I had the emails, the bank statements, the forged signatures, and the recordings from my investigator. I was going to expose her in front of her, and I wanted her to feel the shame I'd been carrying inside for months. When I finally told her I knew about her affair, the money, the forgery, and her plans to run away, her face twisted in fury. She spat at me, called me crazy, said I was ruining her life. But I just stared at her, calm and cold. I told her I was done playing her game, that she was going to face the consequences of her actions. I handed her the evidence and told her that if she didn't come clean and agree to split everything fairly, I'd go to the police. I wanted her to realize that her lies were catching up with her, and she couldn't hide forever. That day, I saw her break. She started crying, begging, trying to manipulate me into dropping everything. But I was done being manipulated. I knew her true nature now, and I was prepared to fight for what was mine, my money, my house, my dignity. I wasn't just seeking revenge for the betrayal. I wanted her to pay for every lie, every cheat, every stolen dollar. I'd spent months building this moment. It was finally here, and I wasn't going to back down. The confrontation with that day turned into something I'll never forget. I laid out all the evidence, screenshots, bank statements, forged signatures, everything. She sat there, trembling, trying to deny it all, but I saw right through her. Her eyes darted around, searching for any way out, any excuse that might save her. But I wasn't interested in her lies anymore. I wanted her to understand that she'd crossed every line, and now she was going to face the consequences. She started crying, claiming she was only helping her sister, that it was all a misunderstanding. She looked so bitchy, so manipulative, trying to turn the tables and make me the bad guy. She kept insisting she loved me, that she'd never cheat or steal from us. But I knew better. I knew the truth. She was a liar, a thief, and a cheat. And I was done being her pawn. I told her that I'd already contacted a lawyer about revering the sale of the house, and that I was going to report her for forgery and embezzlement. Her face paled, and she started screaming, calling me a controlling, jealous lunatic. She said I was ruining her life, that I was paranoid, that I'd never catch her. But I had all the proof, and I made it clear that I wasn't backing down. I wanted her to see that I was serious, that I was no longer the naive husband she'd taken for granted. Then I dropped the bomb. I told her I was filing for divorce immediately, that she'd lost her chance to save the marriage and she'd better get ready for everything coming her way. I wanted her to feel the pain of losing everything she'd lied, cheated, and manipulated her way into. I told her I'd be taking her to court over the inheritance, the house, and everything she'd stolen. I was done playing nice. Her reaction was pure rage. She lashed out, calling me a horrible person, saying I was ruining her life. She begged me to forget everything, to give her a second chance. But I wasn't interested in her tears or her bullshit. I'd already made up my mind. I told her she could try to spin her stories, but I had the evidence and I was going to use it. I wanted her to understand that this wasn't just about money or betrayal, it was about justice. That night, I started preparing everything for the divorce process. I contacted the lawyer, gathered all the evidence in one place, and planned my next moves. I knew she'd try to fight dirty, spin more lies, or even try to manipulate the court, but I was ready. I'd had enough of her lies, her manipulations, her sneaky schemes. I wanted her to see that I wasn't going to be her victim anymore, that I was done, and I was going to make sure she paid for her betrayal in every way I could. I also reached out to Lisa, her sister. I told her I had everything I needed to prove crimes, and I warned her that if she didn't cooperate, I'd go to the authorities myself. Surprisingly, Lisa was scared. She didn't want to get involved in a legal mess, and she agreed to testify about illegal activities. That was a huge relief. I knew I had allies now, and that made me feel a little stronger. As I sat there, going over everything, I couldn't help but feel a strange mix of anger and relief. Anger at for what she'd done, but relief that I was finally taking control of my life. I realized I'd been so blinded by love and trust that I'd ignored all the warning signs. Now I was finally seeing her for what she truly was, a manipulative, lying, cheating bitch who thought she could get away with anything. From that moment on, I knew I was in for a fight, but I also knew I was done being the victim. I was going to stand my ground, fight for what's mine, and make her pay for every lie, every betrayal. Because if there's one thing I learned, it's that you can't let someone walk all over you, especially not when they're willing to cheat, steal, and lie to get what they want. And I was damn sure she was going to regret crossing that line. The days that followed were a whirlwind of legal meetings, intense confrontations, and the slow realization that I was finally reclaiming some sense of control. His reaction to my threat of divorce was predictable. She doubled down on her lies, trying to manipulate everyone around her. She played the victim, crying to her friends, claiming I was an overbearing, jealous husband who just couldn't handle her success. But I didn't buy her act anymore. I knew her tricks, her manipulations, and I was determined not to let her twist the truth. I spent long nights poring over every piece of evidence I had collected. The forged signatures, the bank transfers, the explicit messages between her and David. I even managed to get recordings of her calling Lisa, trying to convince her to lie for her, to say she'd helped her sister with something innocent. I knew this would be the ammunition I needed to take her down legally. I was ready to push hard, to make her face the full consequences of her actions. Meanwhile, I kept my distance from. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of seeing her control over me. I kept calm, collected, and focused. I wanted her to know that I wasn't going to be manipulated anymore. I also reached out to some of her friends, warning them about her true nature, about her affair, her theft, her lies. I wanted her to lose her support system, to understand that I was serious about ending this nightmare. One day, I finally sat down with my lawyer and laid out everything. We filed for divorce, citing infidelity, forgery, and embezzlement. I also pushed to have the house and the inheritance legally reclaimed. The lawyer warned me would fight hard, probably try to drag things out with more lies and manipulation. But I was prepared. I had the evidence and I was ready to see this through to the end. The most shocking moment came when the lawyer tried to spin her story in court, claiming I was abusive and controlling, that she only did these things because I'd been mean to her. I couldn't believe the audacity. I sat there quietly with my evidence ready. I knew it would be her downfall. When I presented the proof of her forgery, her affair, and the transfers to Lisa, her face turned ghostly pale. She realized she'd gone too far, and the cracks in her story started to show. Meanwhile, Lisa came forward and about manipulations, her threats, and her illegal transfers. Her testimony was the final nail in the coffin. The judge saw through lies and ordered her to return the stolen inheritance, to vacate the house, and to face charges for forgery and theft. I felt a strange mixture of relief and disgust. Relief that I was finally getting justice, disgusted that it had come to this, that I'd been betrayed so horribly. Throughout the entire process, I stayed focused. I knew would try to spin things, to make herself look like the victim, but I had the truth on my side. I also knew that revenge wasn't just about getting my money back. It was about making her understand that she couldn't cheat and lie her way through life without consequences. I wanted her to feel the pain of losing everything she'd stolen, and I wanted her to regret ever crossing me. In the end, the court awarded me the house, the inheritance, and ordered to pay damages for her crimes. She was left with nothing. No money, no house, no reputation. I moved out, started over, and slowly began rebuilding my life. It wasn't easy, but I felt a strange sense of peace knowing I had fought for what was rightfully mine. Looking back, I realize how much betrayal can shake you, how deep the wounds can go. But I also learned that sometimes the only way to truly move on is to stand up, fight back, and take control of your life. Lies and schemes taught me a harsh lesson about trust, greed, and the importance of being vigilant. If there's one thing I want others to take away from this, it's this. Never ignore the red flags, and never let anyone steal your happiness or your money without a fight. Because in the end, justice might be slow, but it's always worth fighting for. Now that everything is settled, I spend a lot of time reflecting on how quickly life can turn upside down. I never imagined I'd be in a situation where my wife, the woman I loved, would betray me so completely, cheat with my own brother, steal our inheritance, forge my signature, and lie to my face for months. It's a brutal lesson in trust and deception, but it's also made me realize something important. I can survive this, and I can come out stronger. The aftermath has been a whirlwind of legal battles, emotional scars, and rebuilding. I've had to cut ties with a lot of people, some who believed her stories, some who turned a blind eye. I've learned to trust my instincts more, to listen to that voice inside that warns you when something's off. Because if I hadn't looked into her actions, I might have lost everything. My home, my money, my peace of mind. The thing that stuck with me the most is how manipulative she was. Knew exactly what to say to make people doubt me, to make herself look innocent. She was bitchy, selfish, and relentless in her pursuit of what she wanted: money, control, validation. But I've come to see her for what she truly is, a liar who thought she could get away with anything. She underestimated my resolve, my ability to fight back, and my desire for justice. I've also learned that revenge isn't just about getting even, it's about reclaiming your dignity. I wanted her to realize that she couldn't lie, cheat, and steal without consequences. And seeing her face the court, losing everything she thought she could manipulate, gave me a strange sense of closure. It wasn't just about the money. It was about standing up for myself, about making sure she knew I wasn't going to be her victim anymore. In the end, I've moved on. I've started focusing on myself again, my work, my health, my future. I still feel hurt sometimes, but I also feel a sense of empowerment. I learned that even when life throws its worst at you, you can choose to fight back, to rebuild, to find a new path. And I hope that anyone reading this who finds themselves betrayed or hurt can take away this. Never let someone's lies define you. Trust your instincts, protect yourself, and remember that justice, even if delayed, is always worth fighting for. So here's what I'll say. Be careful who you trust, watch for the red flags, and never let anyone steal your peace. Because at the end of the day, the only person responsible for your happiness and safety is you. And if someone tries to take that away, fight like hell to get it back.